Imagine you spent 30 years building a sandcastle. Not just any sandcastle. The most beautiful sandcastle on the beach. Every single day for 3 decades, you carried buckets of sand. You hauled water from the ocean to make it stick. You shaped it carefully with your hands. You carved towers and walls and pathways. You protected it from wind and from kids who might kick it down. You made it strong. You made it yours. Then one day, after all that work, after all those years, you finally sit down to enjoy it. You have done your part. You built something lasting. Now it is time to relax and appreciate what you created. And the tide quietly starts coming in. Not a giant wave that crashes and destroys everything at once. Not a dramatic storm that you can see coming. Just water. Slowly. Quietly. Steadily. Rising. That is retirement for most people. The problem is not building the castle. The problem is the tide. The problem is what happens after you stop working, after you stop adding sand, after you think the work is done. Today I am going to show you something almost no one explains clearly. Something that retirement calculators do not show you. Something that financial advisors often forget to mention. The biggest danger in retirement is not running out of money because you did not save enough. That is what people worry about. That is what keeps them up at night. But the real danger is different. The real danger is running out because you used the wrong system after you retired. Because the way you take money out matters as much as how much you put in. And in 2026, with markets at high valuations and interest rates uncertain, that risk is bigger than most people realize. By the end of this video, you will understand why the famous 4% rule can quietly fail when you need it most. You will understand why high-yield income strategies can be dangerous traps that look safe but are not. And you will understand what kind of retirement system actually survives bad years, actually weathers the storms, actually keeps paying you even when the market is falling. Let us talk about the truth. Part 1. The real retirement danger. Most people think retirement math is simple. That is the assumption underneath everything. Save money for decades. Invest it wisely. When you retire, withdraw a small percentage each year. Relax. Enjoy. The end. But here is the hidden danger that changes everything. The order of returns matters more than the average return. This is a concept that most retirees have never heard of, but it determines whether they run out of money or not. Let me explain this in a way even a kid can understand. A way that makes the concept completely clear. Imagine you have 10 apples in a basket. 10 apples. That is your retirement savings. If someone comes and takes 1 apple every year, you will last a long time. 10 years. Simple. But what if someone first knocks over the basket and 4 apples roll away and get lost in the sand? Now you only have 6 apples. You lost 40% of your apples before you even started taking any out. If you still remove 1 apple per year, the basket empties much faster. 6 years instead of 10. You did not take more. You did not change your behavior. But the early loss changed everything. That is what happens when the market drops early in retirement. If the first few years are bad, if the market falls right after you stop working, and you are forced to withdraw money during those bad years because you need to live, you damage the future recovery of your portfolio. You sell when prices are low. You lock in losses. You give up shares that would have grown when the market eventually recovers. This is called sequence of returns risk. It is the single biggest threat to retirement security, and almost no one knows about it. It is like starting a marathon with a broken ankle. Even if the rest of the race is flat, even if the course is easy, even if everyone else is running smoothly, the damage is already done. You are behind from the beginning. You never catch up. And right now, markets are expensive. Not maybe expensive. Not sort of expensive. historically high, expensive by many measures. That does not mean a crash is guaranteed. Markets can stay expensive for a long time. But it does mean you should not depend on perfect timing. You should not assume that the first few years of your retirement will be kind. Hope is not a retirement plan. Hope is what you have when you do not have a plan. And in retirement, you need more than hope. Part 2. Machine number 1. The 4% rule machine. The most famous retirement strategy in the world is simple to understand. It has been repeated in thousands of books and articles and seminars. Invest in a broad index fund that tracks the whole market. Withdraw 4% of your initial portfolio value in the first year. Each year after that, adjust that amount for inflation. If you do this, historical data says you should be safe for 30 years. It sounds clean, elegant, academic. It sounds like a formula you can trust. And it was based on real historical research. People studied decades of market data and found that this approach would have survived most historical periods. But here is what most people miss. That research was based on older market conditions. Different times. Different valuations. Different bond yields. Different economic cycles. The world has changed since those studies were done. Let us simplify the risk so there is no confusion. Imagine you retire with $1 million. That is your number. That is what you spent decades building. You plan to withdraw $40,000 per year. 4%. Comfortable. Safe. Year 1 of retirement, the market drops 40%. It happens. Markets do that sometimes. Your $1 million becomes $600,000. But you still need $40,000 to live. You still have to pay your bills. You still have to eat. So you withdraw the money. Now that $40,000 is no longer 4% of your portfolio. It is almost 7%. You did not change your life. You did not spend more. The math changed your survival odds. And here is the hard truth that nobody wants to say out loud. The 4% rule works best when the market behaves nicely. When returns are steady. When bad years do not happen at the worst possible time. But retirement plans should not depend on the market being polite. They should not depend on everything going perfectly. They should be built to survive the bad times, not just enjoy the good ones. Part 3. Machine number 2. The high-yield factory. Because of these fears about sequence of returns and market drops, many retirees choose a different approach. Instead of selling investments every year, they chase high-yield investments. Things that pay out income without you having to sell anything. 10% yield. 12%. Sometimes even 15%. The numbers look amazing. They look like the answer to all your problems. The idea sounds smart. Live off the income. Never touch the principal. Let the money sit there forever while you spend only what it produces. Safe. Simple. Perfect. But here is the problem. That sounds safe, but sometimes it is like buying a car that promises 200 miles per gallon. You have to ask one question. How? How is this possible? Some high-yield strategies use leverage. They borrow money to buy more assets, which increases both returns and risk. When markets are calm, leverage works great. When markets get scary, leverage can destroy you. Some high-yield strategies generate income by limiting upside. They sell options or use complex structures that pay you now but cap how much you can make later. You get steady checks, but you give up growth. And in retirement, growth matters. Some high-yield strategies return your own capital back to you and call it yield. That is like taking money out of your left pocket, putting it in your right pocket, and calling it profit. It is not income. It is just your own money being handed back to you in a different form. During calm markets, when everything is going up and volatility is low, these strategies can look amazing. The checks come. The account stays stable. Everyone is happy. But during long downturns, during extended bear markets, during periods when fear takes over, the income shrinks. The capital erodes. And suddenly the safe income machine starts breaking. The checks get smaller. The account drops. The plan falls apart. High yield is not the enemy. Yield itself is fine. But unsustainable yield, yield that cannot survive bad weather, yield that depends on perfect conditions, that is the trap. The question is not how big is the payout. The question is, does this survive bad weather? Does this keep working when everything else is falling apart? Part 4. The survival machine. So what actually works? If the 4% rule can fail in bad markets, and high-yield strategies can be dangerous traps, what should you do instead? Let us think differently about retirement income. Instead of asking how do I maximize income, ask a different question. How do I build something that survives storms? How do I create a system that keeps paying even when the market is falling? Think of retirement income like building a farm. You do not plant one giant crop that will feed you. That is too risky. One disease, one drought, one bad season, and you starve. Instead, you plant different fields. Different crops. Different growing seasons. Different types of plants. If one field fails, the others survive. If corn has a bad year, wheat still grows. If wheat struggles, beans still produce. That is diversification. Not just diversification of assets, but diversification of income sources. Here is the structure that works. Layer 1 is the foundation. This is the concrete base of your retirement machine. These are stable, dividend-growing businesses. Companies that provide things people need regardless of the economy. Companies that provide electricity. People need power whether the market is up or down. Companies that move energy. Pipelines and utilities that keep running. Companies that own essential real estate. Warehouses, apartments, industrial space. Companies that lend carefully. Banks that have been around for decades. Companies that sell necessary products. Things people buy no matter what. They do not need excitement. They do not need to double every year. They need durability. They need to keep paying through good times and bad. The goal with this layer is income that grows slowly but steadily. Even 3 to 5% annual growth protects you from inflation over time. If your income goes up every year, inflation cannot hurt you as much. This is the concrete base. The thing that holds everything else up. Layer 2 is the enhancers. This is a smaller portion of your portfolio. Higher yield. More income. But controlled size. These might be real estate investment trusts that pay higher dividends. They might be business development companies that lend to smaller businesses. They might be preferred stocks or other income investments. The key is that this layer is smaller. If one position struggles, if one company cuts its dividend, if one sector has problems, it does not destroy the entire structure. It is seasoning, not the meal. It adds flavor, but it is not what keeps you alive. Part 5. Why growth matters more than yield. Here is something powerful that most retirees do not understand. A flat 7% yield that never grows loses to inflation over time. It seems high now. It seems like plenty. But year after year, as prices rise, that 7% buys less and less. A 5% yield that grows 5% per year wins in the long run. Because inflation eats fixed income. A flat payment loses purchasing power every single year. But inflation struggles against rising income. If your payments go up every year, you keep up. You stay even. You do not fall behind. Retirement is not about today's payout. It is about 20 or 30 years of purchasing power. It is about what you can buy a decade from now, 2 decades from now, 3 decades from now. The yield that looks high today might be worthless tomorrow if it does not grow. The yield that looks modest today might be the winner over time if it keeps increasing. Part 6. The mindset shift. Here is the biggest mistake retirees make. The one that leads to all the others. They focus on return. They ask, what is the highest return I can get? They chase yield. They look for the biggest number. They should focus on resilience. They should ask, what is the highest probability of survival? They should look for the system that keeps working when things go wrong. Markets may have a great year. They may go up 20% and make everyone feel like geniuses. Markets may have a terrible year. They may drop 30% and make everyone feel like failures. Your retirement machine should not depend on guessing which one happens. It should not be built on hope and perfect timing. It should be built to survive both. To keep paying in good years and bad. To keep you fed when the sun is shining and when the storm is raging. Part 7. Powerful ending. Let us come back to the sandcastle. The one you spent 30 years building. Every bucket of sand. Every hour of work. Every sacrifice you made along the way. You built it carefully. You made it strong. You protected it from everything you could see. Do not let the tide take it because you trusted the wrong blueprint. Do not let sequence of returns destroy decades of work. Do not let high-yield traps fool you into thinking you are safe when you are not. Retirement is not about gambling on perfect conditions. It is not about hoping the market behaves. It is about building a structure that keeps paying you, that keeps feeding you, that keeps you safe, even when the sky turns grey. Even when the news is bad. Even when everyone else is panicking. If this video helped you see retirement differently, if it made you think about risk in a new way, hit subscribe and join this channel. Because most people are taught how to earn money. Schools teach that. Parents teach that. Culture teaches that. Very few are taught how to keep it. Very few understand what happens after the earning stops. And in the next videos, we are going deeper. Smarter strategies. Clear explanations. No hype. Just the truth about money and how to make it last. I will see you in the next one.